Okay, so now we start our today's session. The paper is what is that? Data structures from our direct sessions, offline classes. We finished these topics in our. I covered the basics of data structure. I explained what a data structure is and what a data structure is doing. All of you know that. Again, I am saying data structure deals two concepts. One is the process and another one is the data. So what about the process? The data structure deals how a process, an effective process is carried out by a computer. Okay, how an effective process is carried out by a computer, and how to write, how to form a process for better execution on a machine. So it's a concept related to process dealt by the data structure. Then regarding data, how the data is orderly executed by a computer. So these two things, okay, way of writing a process and way of using ordering the data on a computer is carried out by means of which one? The failed data structure. So with this basis, we introduced what a process is. Okay, so how to write a process, all the things to be considered while doing a process. Uh, then we started what an algorithm is. Then we discussed what is iterative process and a regressive process. Even in our last session, we discussed what are all abstract data types. First of all, we did what a data type is, what is the need of data type. We explained. Then we define what is ADT. That means abstract data type, why it is needed today. So as a summary, what we concluded under the ADT, today data structure deals the size of data, type of data, and as well as the use of data within a process. So these are all the things that we covered so far. Right. So next we have to go for an important topics. Moreover, this topic is somewhat related to your examination point of view also. Okay. So what the topic is? Performance analysis of a process. Able to see the screen on your mobile or laptop? Can you get the
Yes,
screen?
yes, sir.
Okay. So now we are on a stage to discuss this topic. What is that? Performance analysis of a process. So what we are going to discuss here under this topic. So far we have covered some preliminaries of process and data. That means what a process is. Once again, I am saying what a process is and how to select the process. Okay. So how to select the process, how to execute the process. So these are all the things we covered. So as a whole, we can define what are all them once again. First, we define what a process is. A process is nothing but a sequence of steps to be carried out by a computer. First, I am defining what a process is. Okay. So, for the Tamil students, I would like to explain what we have covered so far. இப்போ நம்ம டேட்டா ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் அப்படின்னா என்னன்னு பார்த்தோம். டேட்டா ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் அப்படிங்கிற ஃபீல்டு வந்து ரெண்டு விஷயத்தை டீல் பண்ணும். டேட்டா ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் இஸ் டீலிங் டூ திங்ஸ். ஒன் இஸ் ப்ராசஸ் ஃபர்ஸ்ட். அடுத்தது வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா என்னது டேட்டா. அல்காரிதம்ஸ் பார்த்துருக்கோம். அடுத்தது ஏடிடி அப்ஸ்ட்ராக்ட் டேட்டா டைப்னா என்னன்னு சொன்னேன். இப்போ நம்ம என்ன பார்க்க போறோம் அப்படின்னா நம்ம நம்ம டீல் பண்ண ப்ராசஸ் டேட்டா. ப்ராசஸ்னா என்ன, டேட்டானா என்ன அப்படின்னு நம்ம வந்து டீல் பண்ணிருக்கோம் இல்லையா. இதை வச்சு ஒரு ப்ராசஸ் பெஸ்ட் ப்ராசஸா இல்லையா அப்படிங்கிறத நம்ம இப்போ டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ண போறோம். ஸோ பை கன்சிடரிங் the two things that we have seen so far, what are all the process and data. Now we are in a stage to analyze the entire thing, whether a process carried out on a computer is a best one, okay, or how to write a process. I am saying the word process again and again. So what a process is? It is nothing but a program. Practically says it is nothing but a program. So how to write a process means how to write a program in a better way. How to write a program which uses minimum resources. That means minimum memory and minimum resources. So for that one, we are going to use this in order to find a process which is more optimum by means of resources and memory. We are going to use this concept. What is that? Performance analysis. We are going to do the performance analysis. இந்த பெர்ஃபார்மன்ஸ் அனாலிசிஸ் அப்படிங்கிறத நம்ம எதுக்காக கேரி அவுட் பண்ண போறோம்னா ஒரு ப்ரோக்ராம் ப்ராசஸ் வைஸாகவும் டேட்டா வைஸாகவும் எப்படி ஆப்டிமைஸா ஒரு ஒர்க்கை செய்யறதுக்கு யூஸ் ஆக போகுது. கம்ப்யூட்டர்ல எஃபெக்டிவா எப்படி இது வந்து ரன் ஆகும். ஒரு கம்ப்யூட்டர்ல ப்ரோக்ராம் அப்படிங்கிறது மினிமம் ரிசோர்ஸையும் மினிமம் மெமரியும் யூஸ் பண்ணணும், ஃபாஸ்டாகவும் இருக்கணும், லிமிட்டட் நம்பர் ஆஃப் ஸ்பேஸும் இருக்கணும். இதை வச்சு நம்ம என்ன செய்யணும், ஒரு ப்ராசஸ் பெட்டரா இல்லைங்கிறத முடிவு பண்ணணும். ஸோ அதை மெஷர் பண்றதுக்கு தான் இந்த பெர்ஃபார்மன்ஸ் அனாலிசிஸ் அப்படிங்கிறத நான் சொல்றேன். ஓகே, அப்போ ஷார்ட்டா என்ன சார் சொல்றது? ஹவு டு சே திஸ் as a ஷார்ட். What is performance analysis? Performance analysis is dealing. You see, performance analysis is dealing the way of selecting an optimized process and the data with the minimum space requirement. So once we did the performance analysis, of a program or a process to be executed, we can easily identify whether that entire process is optimal, better, or worst. Okay, so now we have to define something. In order to do the performance analysis, now we have to do some concepts. First, we define, once again, we define what a process is by means of performance analysis. By means of performance analysis, once again, we have to define what a process is and what a data is. Can you follow? Students able to catch my point? Frida?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we define.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me continue. Okay. So now we define what a process is. Very simple. Process is a sequence of steps to be carried out by a computer. Suppose you are doing a process, that means program on a computer. So what that program is? It's a steps, sequence of steps. A program is having number of statements. I am saying that number of statements has steps. Okay. Moreover, we all know well, even I am repeatedly saying this word, for a process, single process, there are number of solutions. So these two are effectively to be carried out within a performance analysis. Okay, suppose a program or a process to be executed on a computer is analyzed. Okay, so on that process, the process is analyzed like this. How many number of steps on that process, and what about the method to be selected? How many number of steps on that process, and what about the method to be selected for getting the result? So these two are to be carried out effectively. Okay, so that's a process side. Then from the data side, what are all the needed inputs? So process wise, sequence of steps, how many number of steps are there is to be considered, and what method is used for attaining the solution. So these two are to be effectively analyzed by means of process. Then from the data point of view, what is needed? What are all the needed input for that entire process? That means entire programs. So when these are all to be carried out effectively, the performance of that entire program, that means entire process, used to be calculated very easily, so that we can analyze, we can conclude that entire process is giving the result effectively, and that the entire process is giving the result optimally, or that process is wasted one, it is not giving the answer in time. It gives the answer in time, but with a lot of memory, so that we can analyze like this. So apart from these two facts, that means process and data, some more criteria are also to be used to analyze the performance of a process. இப்போ நம்ம டேட்டாவையும் ப்ராசஸையும் வச்சு சொல்லியிருக்கோம். இப்போ ஒரு ப்ராசஸில் நம்பர் ஆஃப் ஸ்டெப்ஸ் எவ்வளோ யூஸ் ஆகுது, என்ன மெத்தட் யூஸ் பண்ணுறோம் அப்படிங்கிறத ஃபஸ்ட்டு நம்ம டிட்டர்மைன் பண்ணணும். அடுத்தது என்ன டேட்டா அந்த ப்ராசஸ் யூஸ் பண்ண போது இதை நம்ம அனலைஸ் பண்ணணும். இதை அனலைஸ் பண்ணிட்டாலே அந்த ப்ராசஸ் எஃபெக்டிவாக இருக்குமா, என்டையர் ப்ராசஸ் ரிசல்ட்டை கரெக்டாக கொடுக்குமா, மினிமம் ரிசோர்ஸ் யூட்டிலைசேஷனோட மினிமம் ஸ்பேஸ் ரெக்யர்மெண்ட்டோட கொடுக்குமா அப்படிங்கிறத நம்ம ஈஸியாக ஃபைண்ட் அவுட் பண்ணிடலாம். இதை தவிர, இது ரெண்டையும் தவிர, ப்ராசஸ் டேட்டாவை தவிர இன்னும் சில க்ரைட்டீரியாஸ் ஃபேக்டர்ஸும் வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு என்டையர் ப்ராசஸ்னுடைய பெர்ஃபார்மன்ஸை அனலைஸ் பண்ணுறதுக்கு யூஸ் ஆகும். Some more criteria are also to be used for analyzing the performance of an entire process. So what are all the criteria? See on your screen. Process, the first criteria is, what is that? Process meets the specific needs of a task. What is the meaning? What about the first criteria you see on the screen? Process meets the specific needs of a task. Suppose you are planning to do a process. That means you are planning to write a program for a work for the given problem. Okay, you selected the method for that one. Moreover, you determined the number of steps and the needed input. As per our first discussion, you selected the method for solving the problem. That means writing process for the given problem and the number of steps to be needed for the given problem and what are all the needed inputs. You selected this. These are all not only required. கொடுத்துருக்கிற ப்ராப்ளத்துக்கு நீங்கள் ப்ராசஸுக்கு நீங்கள் வந்து ஒரு ப்ரோக்ராம் எழுதுறீங்க, ப்ராசஸ் ரெடி பண்ணுறீங்க அப்படின்னா அதில் எத்தனை ஸ்டெப்ஸ் இருக்குது, என்ன மெத்தட் நீங்கள் யூஸ் பண்ண போகிறீங்கிறத சூஸ் பண்ணிட்டீங்க, என்னென்ன டேட்டா வேணுங்கிறத டிட்டர்மின் பண்ணியாச்சு. இது மட்டும் பத்தாது, வேறு என்ன சார் வேணும்? What is needed further? See the first criteria, whether that process, that means process means what? Your written process, your planned process, planned program meets a specific need of a task. So what it says, whether the planned process meets the specific needs means what? Whether it gives the result for the given problem. The planned process, you see, the planned process is yielding the result, giving the result for the given problem. கொடுத்திருக்கிற ப்ராப்ளத்துக்கு நீங்க ஸ்டெப்ஸ் எழுதிட்டீங்க. You have written the steps. You have determined the method. Okay. You also planned the needed input data. Okay, everything is okay. This is not only required. இது மட்டும் கிடையாது. அப்ப வேற என்ன சார் வேணும்? Whether that planned process gives the solution for the given problem. கொடுத்திருக்கிற ப்ராப்ளத்துக்கு சொல்யூஷனை கொடுக்குமா? Whether that process gives the expected solution for your problem. Okay, so you have to consider this as the first criteria. Okay, yes, it gives the result. Suppose your planned process is giving result by using the selected method and the determined number of steps and the selected data. Next, you have to check the correctness of the result, whether the planned process, planned program is giving the result which is near equal, which is expected, whether your planned process, planned program is giving the expected result or not. Suppose your planned process, that means program is giving a result other than the expected, in the sense the entire process is wasted. You should not consider that entire process. So once again, you have to replan it. You have to start from the scratch. Okay, so you have to consider the correctness of the planned process as the next criteria. Then everything is okay. You planned the number of steps, selected the method, selected the number of inputs, that means data. Moreover, you determined Your planned process meets the specific needs of the task. That means that problem, it gives the result. Moreover, the result is correct one. The next criteria is you have to document all the steps to be carried out during the creation of the process for future work. Okay, so you have to document, you have to keep up records for future reference. You not only use this process for the current one as a present one. In future also, you can use this process. Okay, for every process, for every program, there is a future need. So during the creation, these are all to be documented. The process has given correct result, whether it gives the result. So these are all to be documented. It's the next important criteria. Right? You follow? Students, you follow my concept?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Shall I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you have to properly document for the future references. The next important criteria is, suppose you are planning the process. You are planning to write a process. That means you are planning to write a program. You have to, actually, you should not do it as a single concept. You should not carry out as a single process. என்ன செய்யக்கூடாது, ஒரு ப்ராசஸை பிளான் பண்றீங்க, ப்ரோக்ராம் எழுதுறதுக்கு பிளான் பண்றீங்க, அதை ஒரே ப்ரோக்ராமா எழுதக்கூடாது. You should not do it as a single program or single process as you are doing for your current life. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to split the entire process for the given problem into some number of smaller pieces, functions. So what I'm calling there, you see, modularization. Modularization means what? Splitting of entire process into some number of smaller functions, small pieces. So once we did like this, once we are writing a process program by means of modularization, it's very easy for us to update in future. Suppose you planned a process now. For the time being, you planned a process. You have written a program for a problem. Okay. You executed that. That program, that process is effectively working on a computer. It produces a result with the minimum resource requirements and minimum number of phases. Okay, everything is okay. But in future, you have to add a new concept on your process. In future timing, you have to add a new feature. Suppose you did your current process as a single program, it's very difficult to update. Okay, so once you did as a modularized one, that means splitted the entire concept as some number of functions, then you can easily identify, you can easily insert a new function, or you may upgrade the existing as a newer one. So it is somewhat easy. So this is also to be considered. Okay, so while doing the performance analysis over a process for the future. Okay, so all these criteria are over. That is not only required. Your written process, your planned process, that means program, is a readable one. Okay, you should not use variables like A, B on a real processes, real programs. Suppose you are writing a process program for student mark list. As an example, I'm saying there you have to use relevant variables, relevant variable names and function names, like student name, mark 1, mark 2, mark 3, reason number, like that, instead of using A, B, C, like that. So once you are naming, you see, once you are naming the components within your process with a reason, it could be easily identified in future, so that a new user, even a novice user, can easily identify what type of process is going on within that mentioned one. So these are all the criteria to be covered. Okay, so once all these criteria are satisfied, you can easily say that your process is doing well. Shall I go to the next concept? Students, shall I
Yes,
go to
sir.
the... Okay. So we defined the preliminary things. That means the number of steps. Okay. Number of steps and the method to be used on the process and the needed data and some more criteria. Why we defined this? In order to do the analysis, performance analysis of the planned process. So as per our definition, within 3 or 4 seconds, I defined it all. It is very easy to define, but in practical, it is very difficult to achieve. You see what I'm saying? இப்போ நம்ம ஒரு 2 நிமிஷம் 3 நிமிஷத்துல என்னென்னலாம் பண்ணணும் அப்படிங்கிறத ஈஸியா சொல்லிட்டோம். ஆனா ப்ராக்டிக்கலா இதை செய்யறது ரொம்ப கஷ்டம். So what we need, what is needed, what are all needed to achieve this in practical? The first thing to be needed is more practice and experience. Sir, can you give a simple example for this? இதுக்கு ஒரு சின்ன எக்ஸாம்பிள் சொல்லுங்களேன். Very simple. What is that first? You see, I go to the previous slide. What is that first? First, we have to determine the number of steps. As an approximation, you just consider an example. Suppose we are planning for a process. Once again, I'm taking the same example for your explanation purpose. We are planning for a process to calculate the student mark list. Okay, as an approximate, I am planning only 6 steps are needed. While planning the process, what I am doing is, see, I fixes the number of steps is only 7 or 6. As an approximate, I said this. Okay, so with this approximation, I'm going for the method. What method is used for doing the calculation and what are all the inputs? Okay. But while facing this problem in practical, while implementing this problem in practical over a computer, that 6 or 7 steps are not enough. Either I have to reduce it or increase the number of steps. So now I think you got my idea, my point. Okay, so it is very easy to define all these performance analysis factors, criteria, but it is very difficult to achieve. So what is needed here? It needs more practices and the experiences. So there is a framework. In order to do the performance analysis over a process with practical difficulties, there is a framework, measures that are used. Maximum within the field of data structures, within the field of programming, 2 measures are used for doing performance analysis in a practical manner. So what are all the 2 measures? Performance analysis and performance measurement. Make a note of this. Okay, so this might be asked in your examination point of view. What are all the 2 measures used for doing performance analysis? So first one is performance analysis itself. The second one is performance measurement. Practical வந்து ரொம்ப டிஃபிகல்ட்னு சொல்லிட்டீங்க சார். அதுக்கு என்ன வேணும்? ப்ராக்டிஸ் வேணும், எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் வேணும். சரி, அதுக்குன்னு ஏதாவது ப்ரீ டிஃபைன் அப்ரோச் இருக்கா? 2 மெஷர்ஸ் யூஸ் ஆகுது. ஒரு ப்ராசஸை அனலைஸ் பண்ணுறதுக்கு, ஒரு ப்ராசஸோட பெர்ஃபார்மன்ஸ் அனாலிசிஸ் மெஷர் பண்ணுறதுக்கு 2 கான்செப்ட் யூஸ் ஆகுது. ஒன்று என்ன சார்? பெர்ஃபார்மன்ஸ் அனாலிசிஸ், பெர்ஃபார்மன்ஸ் மெஷர்மெண்ட். So what is performance analysis is very simple. The performance analysis concept analyzes the time and space requirements that are independent of the machine. So as I told you earlier, I am defining there are 6 steps are needed to do the which one? Student mark list preparation. So I am just fixing the number of steps independent of the machine. நான் எந்த மெஷின்ல எக்ஸிக்யூட் பண்ண போறேங்கிறத நான் கன்சிடர் பண்ணல. ஜஸ்ட் 6 or 7 ஸ்டெப் போதும் அப்படின்னு நான் நினைக்கிறேன். Okay, like that I am approximating the size of that process is somewhat 2 KB or 3 KB without considering the machine. மெஷினை கன்சிடர் பண்ணாமையே நான் அப்ராக்சிமேட்டா Even I can say like this, theoretically. Theoretically, I am fixing 6 steps are needed and 2 kb are needed. So what way of analysis, what concept it is? It is performance analysis. So the performance analysis determines the time and space requirements that are independent of the machine. Okay, but there might be a problem. Performance analysis not only required. So what we have to do? We have to go for performance measurement. Okay. So what is performance measurement? What is performance measurement? Here, the second aspect, second measure analyzes these requirements. How many steps are needed? What the time is needed? And what are all the space requirements? So these concepts are analyzed with mission dependent matrix. ஒரு மெஷினை வச்சு ஒரு மெஷினில் ஒரு ப்ரோக்ராம் ரன் பண்ணுறதுக்கு எவ்வளோ டைம் ஆகும், எவ்வளோ ஸ்பேஸ் எடுத்துக்கும். அப்போ இந்த இடத்துல என்ன வருது பாருங்க, ஹியர் அண்டர் தி பெர்ஃபார்மன்ஸ் மெஷர்மெண்ட் there is a practical measurement. So the performance measurement analyzes the time and space requirements by considering the machines. It's a machine dependent analysis. Which one? Performance measurement. But the performance analysis is doing the same analysis independent of the machine. So you have to differentiate these two also. Okay. So whether it is a performance analysis that is doing of time and space complexities independent of the machine or doing of the same depending on the machine, two facts are used on that. இப்போ நம்ம பெர்ஃபார்மன்ஸ் அனாலிசிஸ்னு ஒன்று சொல்லியிருக்கோம், பெர்ஃபார்மன்ஸ் மெஷர்மெண்ட்னு ஒன்று சொல்லியிருக்கோம். We did two. Actually, we said two concepts. What are all them? Performance analysis and performance measurement. So to do this effectively, to carry out, to calculate the time and space requirements on both performance analysis and performance measurement, once again, two things are used. What are all them? Space complexity and time complexity. So what is space complexity? These two are used on both performance analysis and performance measurement. So what about space complexity? Space complexity determines the amount of memory needed to run a process on a machine. Okay, either depend on the machine or independent on the machine. Then time complexity. What is time complexity? It determines the overall timing needed to complete a process on a machine. So these two things, space complexity and time complexity, these are all used on both performance analysis and performance measure. That means measurement. So first we'll do this. What a space complexity is, even I asked this on your IIT 1. So what a space complexity is, I define what space complexity is. It analyzes the amount of memory needed on a machine to do a process. Okay. So what the space complexity is doing? Space complexity is the sum of fixed space requirement and variable space requirement. Again, the space complexity is the cumulative of these two, fixed space requirement and variable space requirement. You see, for a process, there are some fixed space requirement on the memory. So what are all the fixed space requirement? The code size, the process size, and space needed for the fixed variables used on that process. Space complexity அப்படிங்கிறது ரெண்டு விதமா இருக்கு. Fixed space requirement னு சொல்லுவோம், variable space requirement னு சொல்லுவோம். So what about fixed space requirement? It considers the size of the program and space needed for fixed variables. On that process, on that program, we used some simple variables like integer, float. So what are all the sizes of that? That are all determined by fixed space requirement. So what is variable space requirement? You take the programs which are using whoops that current being now you are doing. Okay, so on that instances, objects are there. For an object, for each object, different number of size is allocated within your program. ஒரு ஆப்ஜெக்ட்டுக்கு ஒவ்வொரு ஆப்ஜெக்ட்டுக்கும் different amount of memoryங்கிறது என்ன ஆகும், கிரியேட் ஆகும். Like that, you consider the recursive call. Recursive function calls a function which is called by means of itself. So it also needs a variable number of memories, that means space. So these are all counted under the variable space requirement. புரியும்னு நினைக்கிறேன். Fixed space requirementனா code size. Size of fixed variables. இது என்னைக்குமே மாறாது. The size of the code and the size of the fixed variables like integer, float, char, these are all never changing. So these are all counted under fixed space requirement. Variable space requirement means what? Recursive call. Okay. I will explain it in more detail. Suppose for a first recursive call, the recursive call may return the result within 3 steps. For another input, the same recursive call may return the result in 5 steps. So here the space requirement will vary. So this is considered as variable space requirement. ஒரு ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ரிகர்சிவ் கால் வந்து ஒரு 3 ஸ்டெப்ஸ் எடுத்துக்குது ஒரு ரிசல்ட்டை ரிட்டர்ன் பண்றதுக்கு. இன்னொரு இன்புட்டுக்கு ஒரு 5 ஸ்டெப்ஸ் எடுத்துக்குது அப்படின்னா ஸ்பேஸ் அதிகமாகவும் குறையும். ஸோ தட் இஸ் கன்சிடர்ட் ஆஸ் ஏ வேரியபிள். லைக் தட் இன்ஸ்டன்சஸ் ஆஃப் அ ப்ரோக்ராம், தட் மீன்ஸ் ஆப்ஜெக்ட் வித் இன் ஏ ப்ரோக்ராம். எல்லா ஆப்ஜெக்டும் ஒரே சைஸை எடுத்துக்காது. ஸோ தீஸ் ஆர் ஆல் கன்சிடர்ட் ஆஸ் வாட் இஸ் தட் வேரியபிள் ஸ்பேஸ் ரெக்யர்மெண்ட், அண்ட் தட் வேரியபிள் ஸ்பேஸ் ரெக்யர்மெண்ட் இஸ் டினோட்டட் ஆஸ் SP of I. So as overall, you see the last line, the space complexity of a process over a machine, whether the space complexity is within performance analysis or within performance measurement, that is calculated as S of P is equal to C plus SP of I. So what is SP of I? Variable space requirement. And what is C? It stands for constant. C is constant defining the fixed space requirement. So the space complexity, the equation of calculating the total space complexity. So these are all to be asked in 2-mark question. Okay, students. So now I covered what is that? Space complexity. Next, we are in a stage to calculate what is that? Time complexity. To define time complexity, we will do it on our direct session. So I think you got some little idea about the performance analysis of your process. You got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So be right on the line. I will record the attendance.